In the midst of a nuclear war, a man searches for his missing lover, hoping to rekindle their passionate romance before the world ends. In Paris, Robinson wakes up and puts on his prosthetic hand before heading out. He goes to a craft store to look for notebooks, but the owner, Ambeline, tells him they are out of stock due to the paper shortage caused by the disasters. Instead, she gives him a cookbook with blank pages for him to write in. After leaving the store, he passes by the beach where men in hazardous materials suits are working. He remembers visiting this beach a year ago with his family. At that time, they were resting among other bathers while his daughter, Melanie, headed to the water to surf. His wife, Chloe, points out a woman in a white bikini who caught her attention. In the present, Robinson prepares to write in the cookbook as Ambeline enters the same restaurant. He then starts writing, recalling more about his family's visit. That night, a year ago, Robinson watched all kinds of couples pass by. The woman in the white swimsuit from earlier, La, passed by and smiled at him. With nothing better to do, he followed her. He wandered around the area searching for her. Nearby, Melanie saw him and offered him a drink, but he declined, saying he was going home. Instead, he headed to the docks where he found La. Without a word, he boarded a yacht and entered. Soon, the woman came in naked, and he greeted her passionately. His memory is interrupted when Ambeline asks him to buy her a coffee. He agrees, so she joins him and asks if he still teaches geography. Robinson reveals that he left his job to become a salesman working for the Taiwanese. Then, she begins to express sympathy for Robinson's parents, only to be interrupted when ash starts falling from the nearby incinerators. They enter the restaurant to wait for the ash to pass. When it ends, Robinson apologizes. On the way home, he sees La's apartment building and recalls his encounters with her. The day after making love at her place, Robinson went back home with his wife and planned the day with her. However, he received a text from La to meet up, so he made an excuse, lying that he had a sales meeting. In the present, Robinson is heading to his psychiatrist's office, passing people in hazardous material suits emerging from the sewers with green jars. During his session with the psychiatrist, they discuss Robinson's obsession with La, leading him to admit that he is writing a story about her. During his relationship with her, he spent all day with La, even waiting for her while she worked in a seedy bar. After her shift, she would invite him to a beach where clothing was optional, and they spent quality time there. Their relationship lasted 10 days. Some time after the doctor's appointment, Robinson is cooking in his apartment when his daughter visits him. She mentions that the virus is spreading to Ukraine, although her father dismisses it. Melanie adds that the Atlantic coast is contaminated, so she has secured a small boat to take them back home and invites him to come along. Robinson thanks Melanie for her concern but declines her offer. With that, Melanie gives him her scarf as a parting gift before leaving. Once she is gone, Robinson washes vegetables, but neon green water comes out of the faucet. Later that afternoon, more people in hazardous material suits patrol the city while Robinson relaxes in a restaurant. Despite the uncertainty unfolding around him, the man nostalgically recalls his passionate days with La. One day, their meeting was interrupted when a client arrived to see La. The woman apologized, saying she couldn't cancel the client's appointment before leaving Robinson alone. With nothing to do, the man spent time in a restaurant until La sent him a text, asking him to meet her in a suite. Robinson's memories are interrupted when a sudden commotion catches his attention. One of the waiters has collapsed with foam at his mouth, and a panicked customer exclaims that this will happen to everyone. That night, Robinson goes to a bar where he finds his old friend Theo, who comments on how the impending end of the world makes everyone want to celebrate and come together. Theo then shares that he received a letter from a noblewoman he had a relationship with, saying that she has a daughter named Iris, who he believes is the bartender. As the bartender serves their drinks, Theo adds that the old noblewoman, in her madness, thinks that the apocalypse will stop if Theo makes love to Iris. Suddenly, Ambeline approaches them and introduces her husband Cedric before leaving. This also prompts Robinson to leave, so Theo goes with him. Robinson continues to remember when he went to the suite where La received him, saying she had finished working, so the suite was theirs alone. Robinson wandered around and saw the disheveled bed, which troubled him, knowing someone else had made love to La. Seeing her bad mood, she decided to spend time with him outside. However, the next day, La disappeared without warning. Not long after this, Robinson returned home with his wife. When Chloe asked him how his trip to the mountains had been, he suddenly began to cry. With pain, he confessed that he had been with La the whole time, but the woman had disappeared. Since his husband confessed, Chloe also revealed her own secret affair. Because of this, the two separated a week later. In the present, Robinson wakes up to a city alarm. The radio reports a government evacuation announcement, so he gathers his things and leaves. He mounts a motorcycle and soon arrives at a massive traffic jam full of evacuees. He makes his way through them and takes a path off the road. However, his motorcycle soon breaks down, forcing him to continue on foot. He unfolds a map to track his path and decides to head to Zaragoza to find La's mother, hoping this will reunite them. He soon ends up in an abandoned town where wildlife roams the streets. He then enters an abandoned orphanage and feeds on leftovers, though he is interrupted when an earthquake occurs. As night falls, he rests in one of the beds and continues his story. After separating from his wife, Robinson stayed at Theo's house. His friend invited him to have some fun before his meeting, but before Robinson could decide, La suddenly arrived with a fever. Because of this, Robinson gave Theo money to stay in a hotel so he could attend to the sick woman. The day after the earthquake, Robinson continues his journey and finds a group of people stranded on the road due to a landslide. Some speculate that the earthquake might have been a nuclear explosion. While resting with them, Robinson trades his piece of venison that he had hunted in the town for one of their bicycles. As he leaves, one of them confirms that a nuclear explosion did occur in Moscow. The next day, Robinson arrives in a town where people are celebrating the Fiesta de San Fermin. An enthusiastic crowd is dragging their bicycles, so he walks up, only to find Ombeline wandering aimlessly. Upon seeing him, she cries and tells him that her husband left her. They make their way through the massive crowd and watch the bullfight. After retreating to a restaurant, Ombeline shares how her husband simply disappeared. She confesses that she was unfaithful for several years, but her lover also disappeared. Hearing this, Robinson presents her with his notebook to read, but a sudden explosion shakes the restaurant followed by gunfire, forcing them to flee. After finding a safe place, Robinson informs her that bombs have gone off all over the city, destroying the only train station. To find a place to shelter, Robinson then consults the map while Ombeline reads his story. She learns about Robinson and Lee's trip to Taiwan. They went to a bathhouse where they had to use separate pools, but Leah insisted on going with her lover, causing the other clients to leave. He went with them, regretting his shameless actions. Later, they returned to the hotel where Leah suggested going to a bar a friend had invited her to. Robinson reminded her of their dinner plans, but she decided to go to the bar anyway and meet him at the restaurant later. That night, Leah did not go to the restaurant, so Robinson went to the bar to look for her. However, when he asked a bartender, he found out that she had left with another man. The next morning, Robinson received a call from the police saying that his parents had disappeared at sea, though their boat was found. With Leah still not back, he left a message saying he had to return to France. In the present, Robinson and Ombeline are walking along a mountain trail and find a hotel, though it is fully booked. With this, Ombeline spends all her money to rent a room reserved for the royal family. She invites him to the bedroom and shares how alone she has felt all this time, hence her adventure. She points out that they met when things were already falling apart, so they should make the most of it. Robinson agrees, so the two enjoy an intimate moment by the window. During dinner afterward, Robinson cheerfully apologizes for finishing so quickly, but Ombeline is happy they did. Just then, she sees her husband nearby dining with Iris. Robinson suggests they leave, but Ombeline refuses to follow him while he remains insensitive to her situation. Offended, Robinson leaves, leaving her to deal with her husband. As he exits, he receives a video message from his daughter, saying she's okay. He responds with a video recording to update her that he is in Spain. Ombeline then arrives in a car, explaining that she still had the spare keys to her husband's car and invites him to get in. During the ride, Robinson recalls when he met La in Canada and they rode a snowmobile to a cabin in the mountains. However, as soon as they arrived, two men on a snowmobile pointed a gun at Robinson while taking La away. They even took Robinson's coat and snowmobile, leaving him to walk back to the hotel in the freezing cold. In the present, Robinson shares with Ombeline that he lost his arm due to frostbite at that time. They then arrive in Zaragoza and go to the bar where La's mother lives, with Robinson hoping to find La there. A city alarm sounds, so Robinson tells Ombeline to drive to the Costa Brava to wait for her husband. However, the woman refuses to be alone, so she decides to wait for him. With that, he heads to the bar and finds a woman talking on the phone, mentioning La's name. The woman suddenly runs out, so he chases her. However, once he catches up and asks her about La, the woman responds that she never came home. Disappointed, Robinson returns to where Ombeline is while people around them evacuate. Soon, soldiers guide them to the train station where they take the train. Upon arrival at their destination, a soldier informs them that they will be sent to temporary tents while disinfectants are sprayed on the train. The next morning, Robinson is taken to Chloe, who now works for the Ministry of the Environment. They chat a bit, though Chloe frowns upon seeing Ombeline with him. Nevertheless, Chloe gives her ex-husband a passport and tells him to visit her at her base when he can. He then goes to Chloe's office, which is an old hotel room. There, she admits that she still loves him and wants to rekindle the passion. She asks if he is still in love with La, and he replies that their story is over. As they enjoy each other's company, an alarm sounds and someone calls on the phone, interrupting them. Robinson senses the urgency and prepares to leave, so Chloe gives him a card for a hotel reservation. He kisses her before departing. He goes outside to find Ombeline, but upon seeing her, he decides to turn around and leave, wishing to be free of responsibilities. Robinson wanders around and sees a theater poster with Theo on it. Hoping to see his friend, he goes to the opera but encounters Cedric. The man vaguely inquires about his wife, so Robinson tells him where she is. He finds a seat in front of the stage and watches the performance. He sees Theo dance, but to his surprise, Ombeline enters and looks for him, disturbing the audience. To stop her, he raises his hand to call her and lets her sit next to him. As the show continues, she complains about how worried she was and how she is always left behind. Unbeknownst to him, she pulls out a knife. Soon, Robinson finds her leaning on him, so he helps her up, only to discover that she is fatally injured. People scream as he takes the knife from her hand, but then an explosion shakes the theater, causing additional panic. Everyone flees the theater. Outside, Chloe finds her ex-husband and tells him that missiles will hit France in 2 hours, but they have a plane ready to escape. However, Robinson refuses to join her, arguing that he doesn't want to die on a plane. In response, his ex-wife decides to stay with him, urging him to wait for her while she runs to the truck to inform her superiors. However, a rebel suddenly fires a rocket that blows up the truck. The door hits Robinson and knocks him unconscious. The next day, Robinson wakes up inside an ambulance. He exits and finds the place in total anarchy, with people looting stores and fleeing for their lives. He forces his way into a hotel and eats leftovers while thinking about Chloe. Suddenly, he hears someone playing the guitar. He goes upstairs and finds a woman asleep in a room while Theo plays the guitar nearby. Theo hugs him and checks his wound while Robinson tells him about the rocket launcher that killed his wife. Worried, Theo asks about Melanie, so his friend assures him that she is safe at sea. Theo then informs him that both the airport and the train station are closed and that planes will no longer land there. Theo serves a drink to Robinson and confesses his love, lamenting his affection for the shameless La. He removes Robinson's shirt and kisses him, but Robinson rejects him. Theo respects his decision but then throws himself out of the window. After witnessing his friend's death, Robinson goes to another room and realizes that the woman there is Iris without her blonde wig. She wakes up and asks about Theo, so Robinson grimly tells her what happened. Shots fired from a distance urge them to leave, and Iris informs him that her family has a castle with a nuclear shelter. Soon, they drive a truck and stop at a restaurant to eat. However, the customers have died at their tables, and the only surviving employee leaves with a box of liquor. This forces them to prepare their meals in the kitchen. While eating, Iris shares that, although Theo is her father, they spent the night together because the world is ending. However, this idea triggers a panic attack. She opens her locket and takes a pill. She also offers one to Robinson, saying it will make him feel better, but he recognizes the medication and declines. Iris then retires to lie down, but Robinson sees soldiers in hazmat suits downriver, which leads him to go looking for her. He enters a nearby hotel and sees bodies in each room. Soon he finds the woman lying naked on the bed. Robinson knows that the pill was poison, so he joins her in her final moments. Appreciating his presence, she tells him the nuclear shelter password and soon the poison takes her away. That night, Robinson arrives at the castle and knocks on the door. A camera speaker asks for the password, and he mentions it, adding that he knew Iris. The door opens, and he enters. There, a woman greets him and gives him a white coat. He then climbs the stairs and is received by the castle's owner, Homer, who asks about Iris, so Robinson shares the sad news. Homer explains that Paris is lost and the military is responding with missiles. He then calls Iris's mother to inform her of her daughter's death. Hearing this, the woman lies down on the bed and covers herself. Homer then guides Robinson to the dining room where a high-class party is being held. He tells him to enjoy the evening and partake in the blue cocktail drink. The guest wanders around, listening to people talking about radiation and viruses. He then finds himself in a dimly lit room filled with people dancing languidly, all given over to carnal desires. He briefly dances with a woman and leaves. In another room, Robinson sees people watching explicit videos. To his surprise, La is in one of the videos, still wearing the hat from her trip to Canada. This confirms that she is still alive. Eager to contact her, he goes to a room with laptops and politely asks a man if he can check his email. When the man rudely refuses, Robinson hits him with a bottle of wine. However, as he sits down, all the laptops suddenly start playing religious propaganda. Robinson is knocked out by the same bottle of wine. Robinson wakes up the next morning to find all the guests dead in the dining room. He runs to the kitchen and finds the servants, who have apparently poisoned the wine served the night before. Seeing that he survived, they invite him to stay if he wishes. With La still out there, he declines and leaves in his car. He passes by a monitored road and continues until the truck stops. He continues on foot, eventually arriving at the abandoned city of Paris. He rests in the dark city and later explores the empty streets. Eventually, he finds La's apartment and enters to look for her. To his delight, he finds her inside just as a missile strikes from afar. With their fate now sealed, they go out into the streets and strip off their clothes. They run throughout the city, liberated in both body and soul. Finally reunited, they leave behind all regret and prepare for the end. Soon, a missile strikes and light envelopes them. If you enjoyed the summary, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. It's free and really helps me continue to grow.